Welcome back to my kitchen. I'm gonna be canning dry beans today. Two ways. So today I'm gonna be canning these special beans, Anasazi beans, that are better than regular dried beans. They have a thinner skin, they're tastier, I heard, and they have 75% less fermenting carbs that gives you gas. This mug is roughly 2 cups, and for each pint I'm gonna need 1 cup. For each quart I'm gonna need 2 cups, so I'm gonna need total of 24 cups, so 12 of these. So I have probably about 2 pounds left out of 10. The first thing I want to do is wash it real well. They're really beautiful, but once you cook them, they're going to be like Eden colored. I'm gonna divide this between 2 pots because I'm assuming they're gonna swell. I'm gonna cover them with water. Probably twice as much as beans. Bring them to boil, and then I'm gonna take it off the heat and let them soak in hot water for 1 hour only. I'm not gonna pre-cook these, just soak them. You could actually skip this step if you want to. You don't have to soak the beans. So I started to heat my water in the canner. I also have a separate filtered water boiling that's gonna be used to fill my jars. And my oven is on 215, and I'm sterilizing 10 pint jars for the first round of canning. Now you don't have to sterilize your jars when you're pressure canning, but I just do. And I like to pack everything hot as much as possible. I have some hot water here that I'm going to use to heat up my lids. And my rings for the jars. I have salt. This is just natural salt, doesn't have any additives, so you can use canning salt or kosher salt. I'm gonna have a paper towel wet to wipe off the jar rims. I have my funnel here and these tools to move the jars around. So let's get started. I'm only gonna do 5 jars at a time because that's the space I have here. Here's my pre-soaked beans. Now if you are starting with dry beans, you haven't pre-soaked it or cooked it or anything, make sure you don't put more than half a jar of beans because they will swell. In my case, because I pre-soaked them, actually I'm going to put them a couple of inches from the rim, so it's about where the jar has the shoulder. because I don't want my beans to get squished in the process of canning. They're still gonna be swelled a little bit. So that's about 2 cups of pre-soaked beans. These. I would say 1 3/4 cups. Then I'm gonna put a 1/2 teaspoon of salt into each jar. Now you don't have to, but it's good for the taste. Now I'm gonna fill up the jars 1 inch from the top, and that would be the bottom of my funnel. I'm gonna use a wooden spoon to debubble. I just roll it around, push it down, make sure there are no bubbles, because if you have bubbles, it's gonna siphon the liquid out in the pressure canner, because it's trying to push the air out and it's gonna push the liquid instead. So as I debubble, make sure my levels are correct. My water is still 1 inch from the top. I'm gonna wipe off each rim, make sure there's nothing stuck to it. That's gonna prevent the seal. Then put the lids on them. Then the rings. And then I'm gonna tighten the rings just enough to hold down the lids. Don't have to do it too hard. And move this into the canner. So I'm gonna repeat the process for the next 5 jars, and then I'll show you what's in the canner. The last jar is going into the canner. Let's see if I can fit it. Okay. And my jars are actually not directly on the bottom. There's an insert that keeps them up off the bottom, so they're not directly touching the bottom of the canner. They can touch each other, that's okay. I'm gonna turn up the heat under the canner now, although the water is already hot, but it hasn't been boiling yet. Here's the lid for the canner. I made sure that everything is nice and clean. The seal is still intact. The openings are not blocked by any means. And I'm gonna go ahead and close the canner. There are two arrows here that you line up as you push them down, and then just twist, and it's all locked. My canner also has a gauge, so what I'm gonna do right now is bring this to boil, wait for the steam to come out of the spout, and let that steam come out for 10 minutes. And that is venting the canner. You want to push out all the air inside the canner, and that will allow us to just have steam in there. And that's when we're going to build up the pressure. So until the steam comes out, I'm going to have it high. Once the steam is coming out, I'm going to turn it down a little bit, and I'll show you that when that happens. So once the steam's starting to come out steadily from the spout, it's hard to see, but it's coming in streams now instead of just puffs. Then turn down your heat to medium and start the timer for 10 minutes. And let that steam come out for 10 minutes. The canner has vented for 10 minutes on medium heat. So now the next step is to put on the 10-pound weight on the spout, like that. If you live on higher elevation beyond 1,000 feet, you gotta follow different instructions. I'm gonna turn the heat back on high, and I'm gonna wait until this gauge reaches the 10-pound pressure. I will be canning on at least 11 pounds of pressure, between 11 and 12, so once it reaches 10 pounds I will turn down the heat because I don't want it to go much farther than that. So see you back in a little bit. This process to bring it up to pressure probably going to take about 5 to 6 minutes. The gauge has reached 10 pounds. It's almost on 11, so now I'm going to turn down my heat between low and simmer, at least on my stove. That's what it takes to keep the pressure. And it's definitely past 11 pounds, so I'm going to go ahead and start timing at this point. And for the pints, to can the beans, I need to do this for 75 minutes. You must maintain the minimum pressure or for the entire time, or you're gonna have to start over timing it. If you don't have a gauge on your canner or your gauge is broken, you can still tell if your canner is at the right pressure because your weight should be just gently dancing back and forth. That's the indication that you're definitely over 10 pounds. Time is up. I processed this for 75 minutes. The next step is easy. All you do is turn up the heat and walk away for an hour. Let this cool off naturally. It's not going to be totally cooled off in an hour, but the pressure is going to go down to 0, and we'll be able to open the canner and take out the jars. The pressure is down to 0, and if I take off the weight, there's no more steam coming out of it. So at this point it is safe to open it. However, it's still very, very hot, so still be careful. I'm gonna open the top and ever so carefully I'm gonna open it away from my face because there will be still some steam. Start taking these out very carefully. They're still boiling. And put them on a tea towel. I'm gonna repeat the process now for the quart jars. For the next batch, I'm gonna be canning them in quarts, and I'm gonna add chopped onions and bay leaves in addition to the beans, because these will be used for my grandma's recipe of bean soup. So I might as well put things in it that I'm gonna need anyway. Half a cup of chopped onion in each. And a large bay leaf in each. And a whole teaspoon of salt in each. And I'm going to fill the jar similar to the previous canning, where I'm only going to put it sort of by the shoulder, leaving enough space for that to expand a little more, because I don't want this to become mush. It's about 3.5 cups of pre-soaked beans. So it looks like this. It has a little water on the top and a little onion on the bottom and the bay leaf into the canner. So I have my quart jars in here with the beans in it, and the difference between this and the previous batch is that because they're quarts, I'm gonna have to process them on 11 pounds for 90 minutes. So here are all my beans, the 7 quarts for soup. with onion in it and bay leaf. And then here are my pint-sized beans. That's gonna be for other purposes. So I think next time I actually want to put even less beans in it because it absorbed all the liquid and I like to have some liquid remaining in there. So this looks a little bit dry to me. These cool off. I will remove the rings. I will label them with the date and content, and I will wipe off the outside of the jars because there was some siphoning, so the jars are a little bit sticky, so you don't want anything on the outside of the jars that could go rancid. So that's the end of today's canning session, and don't forget to watch my video about how I cook with these beans. See you next time.